Hey everyone, welcome to the 10th episode of Papa's Home. We're going to continue our series about plumbing and talk about water pressure. And I know some of you like those high pressure showers, so I'm going to give you some information to think about. How to measure your water pressure regulator that I had installed, and the last thing I'll talk about, some options for monitoring your water pressure. But before we get into that, let's start with a recap. My water is provided by the city. This is where my water meter is. This is where I connect my water main to the city's supply lines. From there, we dug a trench through the lawn. It's pretty much in a straight path from where I'm walking right now. Then it takes a 90-degree bend over towards the sidewalk. You can see in the grass where the trench used to be. And then this is my water main. These two connections were my old water main. They were 3/4 inch, and now I've upgraded to 1.25 inch. And this water main is going through the wall into the garage. That's where most of my plumbing equipment is. Now here's the inside of my garage. You can see the two pipes on the right where they were disconnected. This is my new water main going up. This lever right here is a shutoff valve, so if I ever need to shut off the water to the whole house, I can just pull this lever right here, and then just above the shutoff valve is my pressure regulator. So let's start talking about measurements. Water pressure is measured in PSI, or pounds per square inch. But do you know what the water pressure in your house is supposed to be? The water pressure at almost everyone's house is going to be a little bit different. Think of it as a range. Personally, I prefer my water pressure around 60 PSI. But typically for a residential home that's about 3 bedroom and 2 bath, you want your water pressure to be between 52 and 75 PSI.
No more, no less.
Anything beyond those levels is considered high or low pressure. In some extreme cases, a water utility company may provide you with 150 to 200 PSI. That can put a lot of stress on the pipes. On the flip side, if your house is more than 1 story, you might be experiencing low pressure. But why is any of this important? Well, if you're in a situation where you have too much pressure, it could put a lot of stress on the pipes, cause pinhole leaks, and maybe even cause your pipes to burst. And if you're in a situation with low pressure, well, nobody likes a low pressure shower. So what I'll do right now is actually measure my water pressure. And to do that, I'll use this water pressure gauge kit. This one was a little bit nicer than some of the other ones. Some of the cheaper ones were closer to $10 or $15. This one cost about $30, and I'll put a link in the description below. So inside this box came this little kit, and you can see it comes with a whole bunch of adapters. This is the actual pressure gauge. Each one of these adapters can actually be used to connect to different fittings. So I went and connected this to a garden hose connection that's next to my water main. You'll notice that it is dripping a little bit of water. This is totally normal, but maybe you should consider bringing a bucket. And if you look closely here, it's just under 60 PSI, I'd guess around 56, which is great because my pressure regulator is supposed to be set around 60. So that's a really easy way to check your water pressure today. But let's pretend for a moment that you checked your water pressure and it's within the ideal threshold. Well, I still think you should get a regulator, and here's why. Pretend for a moment that this white marker is your water pressure. If you're like me and you get your water pressure from the city, that pressure can fluctuate. Demand from other residents will change throughout the day. In addition, the city might turn on and off different pumps. As a result, when you measure your water pressure, it might start at 60, but if you measured at a different time of day, it could spike pretty significantly. But it can also go the other direction as well. And that could put a lot of stress on your pipes. And if those fluctuations happen on a daily basis, you're that much more likely to have pinhole leaks or maybe a burst pipe. So in general, I think it's always a good idea to have a water pressure regulator. And if you're not sure if you should get one, you should consult a licensed plumber and see if it's right for you. If you do already have a pressure regulator installed and you're not satisfied with your pressure, there's a nut on the side right here. And if you make a small adjustment by a 1/4 turn, you can either increase or decrease the water pressure for your house. Though that seems like a very simple task, I still recommend contacting a licensed plumber, otherwise you might cause some damage to your system. Over-tightening it could damage the regulator, and depending on your setup, you might have to make some adjustments to your water heater or other devices before changing it. You may also notice a tag like this. It's just meant to give you additional info about your device. Now if you're looking to get a new one installed, I recommend doing a setup like this from this old house.
Got about 110 pounds right here.
And that comes from the city, right?
Right, that's the city supply. It goes through our pressure reducing valve, and look at this. We're about 50 pounds on this side. Now if it was too high, I could have turned this counterclockwise. It would have made it a little bit lower. If I want to increase it, I could have turned it clockwise, but 50 is perfect.
So that's one approach you can take to monitoring your water pressure. Another is to install a device like this called Flow. Now I have to admit, it's very expensive. This one cost around $1,000. Now here's the reason why I bought it. I can see real-time and historical data about my water usage, and what you can see is as I'm using different devices, the pressure drops. But there's also a few trends where in the middle of the night, my water pressure seems to drop. I think that's happening from the city, but I don't know for sure. All I know is that my water pressure regulator seems to be working properly and making sure that the water pressure is not going above 60 psi. The last thing I'll show you is what happens when I turn on the faucet. You'll notice that the pressure drops, and the flow rate is steadily increasing. And when I turn it off, the flow rate drops towards zero, and the pressure slowly starts to increase. So this tells me a couple things. The readings from flow are not instantaneous. It does take about 10 seconds before it picks it up, but this also tells me that each device uses quite a bit of water pressure. So if everyone's taking a shower and the dishwasher and we're doing laundry at the same time, I may see sizable decreases in water pressure. And if I feel like that this scenario is pretty common, I could always call up my plumber and get my pressure regulator adjusted, and instead of it being at 60 psi, maybe dial it up so it's closer to 70, which would still be within that ideal threshold. Now, if you have low pressure, you may want to consider getting a water pressure booster. This is used in homes where the utility company provides very low water pressure. For me, this is not a device I needed, so I didn't install it in the house. Though I can't tell you the specifics about a booster, you now know what it's called. So now you can consult your local plumber and determine if it's right for you. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said before, this is our 10th episode, and in a short amount of time we got quite a few subscribers. If you like this video, please share it with other people, like, subscribe, participate in our Patreon, like our Facebook page, all the things. A lot of you have been sending me private messages and giving me lots of feedback about how to make these videos better, and I'm trying to take that to heart. So as always, I hope you learned a lot. Thanks for stopping by.